Hey, good evening, everybody. I know it's a little late, but hey, it's the Christmas week. People aren't working as much, got days off, and whatever the case is. So I'm glad anyone who could join us tonight. We're doing a one-on-one, a mano with my brother Hebot. And really, this was all about getting his thoughts on the Power On story of Xbox documentary. Great documentary. I personally thought it had its flaws, especially towards the end. And while I gave my thoughts, my concise thoughts, I want to just have a chat and conversation with my brother Hebot on this one. So before I get into everything, let me just introduce Hebot. A great person in general, a great friend, very knowledgeable about all of his fandoms. Gaming, especially his gaming knowledge, is incredible. So the gaming knowledge, even for his figures. We were just doing some movie and comic talk before we went live. So he's got a lot of knowledge. Hebot, introduce yourself, my friend.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Glad to be here. I gotta give you, a nice round of applause for just having the class act of taking the time to do this because I really wanted to do it myself on my channel a while back. I hit you up, but I couldn't. I just couldn't.
Right,
I've been
right.
so busy. And when you guys do things like this, like you, Erod, even Sega Man, it really lifts the weight off me a lot because I'm just able to pop in, whether I'm on the move, whether I'm in and out, and I can do what I got to do, and I don't have to worry about the setup,
Yeah,
organizing. You get what I'm trying to say?
yeah, yeah. I
Because
understand.
a lot of people don't realize how hard it really is to put things together just to do a simple show.
Yeah, yeah,
They really don't think there's no work that goes with it, but it does, especially when you have a heavy load on your day with your daily life. Right? Everybody
yeah.
has lives. We all got things to do. So I want to salute you and say thank you so much because at least now you are giving me an opportunity to give my thoughts also on the
Hmm.
documentary that you did a very excellent video, by the way. So salute to you for that. I thought it was very well put together. I agreed with a lot of points that you said. I didn't disagree, and I kind of wanted to feed off of that to add to what you were saying. And I hope tonight, talking for a little bit, it'll give me that opportunity, which I'm pretty sure it will, because
Yeah,
we always have great conversations when we get
yeah.
together.
Hey, that
You
that's
know,
why that's why this one's a one-on-one. That way that
right?
you could get your thoughts out. And we could just have a nice discussion about it.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. So I
Yeah,
appreciate it, and you guys, as always, you can find me on YouTube on He under Heban, and with here with my brother Unlimited. I believe this is part of the Unlimited Truth, or just one of the
yep,
regular streams, or with the Exile, or with my brother Sega Man and the Alpha, or even with once to 100 from time to time when he invites me on to the Xbox Live games. Of course, since it's so late on a
right.
Saturday, I usually spend Saturdays and my weekends with my friends. Since I usually spend it with my family, it's hard for me to partake in it. But nonetheless, she still does invite me, and I still come out from time to time. So yeah, you can find me in all those outlets, and obviously Twitter and Instagram, as you guys know already. So let's rock, man. Let's talk, and let's go from here and see what your thoughts are as well, in corroborations with mine. So see what's up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I have a feeling you're going to do most of the talk in this one because yeah, I did give my thoughts, but just a quick recap: the Xbox Power On story of Xbox documentary. It was really good. I really did enjoy it. I thought it had some flaws towards the end there, and I do want to explain it real quick because there's 6 parts, right? And the first three and a
Yes,
half
yeah, I'm with you.
parts, yeah, the first three and a half parts told this excellent story about the first Xbox, the OG Xbox, how it came about. Um, hey, it's very, very loud in the background.
Yeah, I'm trying to mute. Hold on one second. I'm gonna mute right now. Sorry about that, brother.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. All right, yeah. So the first three and a half parts were about the original Xbox. Told this excellent story how it came about, the games that were big, the huge hit that was Halo and Halo 2, the impact of LAN parties and everything. It was wonderful. Then halfway through part 4 and all of part 5 was about the Xbox 360. talk about the Red Ring of Death, how they bounced back, the influence and impact the 360 had both had a lot of names I love seeing. Peter Moore was on there. You know how he transitioned from Sega to Xbox and all the stuff he did in that first half at 360, and then Don
Oh
Matrix,
yeah, oh yeah.
and then Don Matrix with how he took over and how he pushed the Connect in a broader audience outside of gaming for the second half of the 360. You know, the
Hmm.
last part is where it fell short for me personally, because the Xbox One generation was, again, it was 8 years, right? 8 years, and it barely touched on it to any real detail. You know, for example, they
Hmm.
mentioned that the Bethesda deal was the third largest acquisition in Microsoft history. That got 30 seconds of talking time. You think
Yes.
something that big, they would have went into how they went to Bethesda, who went to Bethesda, who came up with the idea, similar to what they did in the first
Hmm.
part
Hmm.
with the OG
Hmm.
Xbox. How we knew the DirectX team and when they went against the Windows CE team. That's what I wanted more of when it came to the Xbox One generation, and unfortunately, that's where it felt flat for me because it was just way too surface level. At times, just feeling more like an ad than a documentary. But
Hmm.
that's my thought. Overall, you know, when 5 out of 6 parts of a documentary is great, it's still a great documentary, and I still recommend it. Even if the end to like you can't condense 8 years into just roughly 30 minutes, basically, which was my biggest. That was really my only concern. Otherwise, it's wonderful. Told a lot of history. Through some, it was it did two things for me, man. It brought back a lot of great memories in the sense that I do remember the popularity. Like I remember in high school with Halo One and all that stuff. Hell, some of us were playing Halo during school hours. We were so addicted to that game, right? That's how popular
Hmm.
Halo was in high school. So I remember little stuff like that was just, oh man, it was just a nice trip down memory lane. It was nice seeing faces in game and I haven't seen in ages. And while I didn't like, and by the way, some of the people Microsoft, do a better job vetting who you put on these shows, because guys like Ryan McCaffrey and Jeff Keighley, they don't hold a candle to the
It
interest
almost,
that was.
yeah,
Hell,
they
yeah,
almost felt out of place.
very, man, were they? Because it's like, on one hand you got Seamus Blackley and Peter Moore. Hell, you even had Jack Trent in there, right? And it's like, okay, these are guys who have this industry knowledge. What did Jeff Keighley didn't add anything? Ryan McCaffrey, he just looked like a smug asshole whenever he spoke. The clips of
Right,
Angry Joe were just annoying because I was just bitching and bitching and bitching. But yeah,
right, right.
I'm about to turn the mic over to you, man. What was your initial thoughts of everything?
Well, you had your video, like I said. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, okay. You had some very good points, and you are actually right on the money. I even spoke to Sega forever for a little bit about it, but we weren't able to get in depth. Like the documentary is so well executed with the original story for the OG Xbox. But what made it so good was the fact that it broke down so many little details
Right.
of how hard that tree was for them to climb.
Yeah.
The whole everything about it, from the idea of internally
Hmm.
how Microsoft was looking at them like, what? You guys crazy? But the whole
Yeah.
thing came from, and you know what got the one thing that did disappoint me
What?
a whole lot was every time they spoke about Sony, because that's where everything came from because of Sony. And the
Hmm.
documentary addresses it, but they didn't throw the real dirt and shade that Sony was doing to them, like how hard it was for them to establish even some type of audience in Japan when they tried to go to Japan. You
Right.
understand?
Right.
Because of the dedication and the love that they had for Nintendo and for Sony, for example. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like they didn't explain the inception of the colors of the Xbox, which actually came because of the meeting they had saying that they weren't allowed to use the colors that they wanted to use because they were disrespectful to their it was a disrespectful thing to their culture, but yet it was the color that Sony was already using for like the PlayStation 2, for example,
Right.
right? Which was the blue and black or whatever. They didn't sit there and really give that detail, which they should have, because
Yeah.
that's a big intricate part of the Xbox and signature part of what Xbox symbolizes. That green, that neon, that infamous neon green with black. You
Hmm.
see what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
that's what disappointed me, because they threw this, they let you know it was about Sony, and everything was came from that part. Because, like they said, Sony took the market share. They were the market
Yeah.
leaders
Yeah.
in entertainment, and they were saying, and they were sponsoring the PS2 as the next entertainment box in living rooms and in homes that was going to take over the entire entertainment center. Like,
Right.
that sounds familiar with the Xbox Series X, right?
Hmm.
But they were trying to do it in a snarky way, not in a way where it would benefit developers, where it would benefit, the industry as a whole, the gamers as a whole. No, but it would benefit only solely Sony. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? And so the whole fear was that they said we're going to take the PC space, because
Yeah.
they were going to bring video games at a video game level that you weren't even seeing on PC at that time,
Yep.
because of
Yep.
lack of development, lack of publishers wanting to put their games on PC. Because we all know that for many years, a lot of things would get hacked, and they wouldn't really buy games from developers. They wouldn't support them. So they're not going to make no money. And a lot of developers knew this, but they knew that with consoles, they didn't have to worry about this. You see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
So the whole idea was that they were afraid, because Windows at that point was killing it. They were making billions of dollars, and they took over the PC market with their
Yeah. Yeah.
operating system, right? And then,
Yeah.
as you saw, that they ventured off and started doing games like the Age of Empire, like the Flight Simulator, and they were having massive success. So
Yep.
when Bill Gates heard that, that's what Seamus Blackley and the other four brothers took as the pinnacle part of the pitching point of why they should make a video game console to take control of that space, and not to allow Sony, because they were a threat, obviously, because they had a lot of money at that point as well, to take over that space and possibly interfering with the PC space. And
Yeah.
they went into depth about it. They talked about it.
Yeah.
But when you saw they mentioned the name of Sony, no tengo encima, perdona, papi, perdona, no tengo ahora, I'm sorry. No tengo tampoco. Estoy por buscar mi hija de trabajo, perdón. Sorry about that. I just got stuck on the.
I know you good.
Está bien, babo. My bad, puppy. So
Hey.
it's just a gentleman asking me for $1, and I don't even have nothing on me because I have the money to pay. I feel bad, but it's cold. That's why he probably want to get a cigarette or something. Anyway, so that's what kind of disappointed me, that they
Right.
mentioned Sony and why they were doing it. Because even when he said, when they were doing the meeting, that Bill Gates kept yelling at you, them, and all this stuff, and they were like, "Oh, we're doomed. That's
Hmm.
it. We're doomed." And yet, at the end of the day, when he said, "Well, what about Sony?" And then that's when it made him click. Oh shit, we lost focus of what we needed to concentrate.
Right. Right.
These guys are the threat, right? And that's when they said, "Go ahead and do it." You see what I'm saying? So
Right.
that's why I thought it needed to be more addressed and show the really more dirt side of what Sony was doing in the more detail. But they still shied away from that, and you know why they did it, because Microsoft they always want to be like, you don't want to be like the guys that you looked at as the ones looking for trouble, starting trouble. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And poke the bear, so to speak, right?
Right.
So with that part disappointed me, but you're right. The first three parts, or actually first four parts, actually, because even the fourth part was very much so uh, more about the Xbox OG. Um, was excellent. It was excellent, and it's absolutely worth the watch. Everybody that's just a video game fan in general, you don't even have to be an Xbox fan, should definitely watch it, because it's worth your time,
Right.
especially that it's free, because you can watch it right
Yeah.
on YouTube.
That's right.
And it's free, so they should definitely watch it. And I honestly was speaking about this with Sega Man, that they should consider maybe bringing it out on DVD or 4K or whatever,
Yeah.
and maybe possibly add more stuff that they probably had to cut out in the cutting room floor, right?
Oh yeah, that'd be a
Um,
good idea.
right, right. But just like you said, what got me upset and disappointed was that when they went to the 360 generation, that was their point where they pretty much changed the tables, right? Everything turned in their favor. They made history, but they also added a bunch of new ideas and innovations, right? And they capitalized on ideas and innovations that existed for many years and cemented them in the console space and perfected them, right? But instead, they concentrated more on what happened with the Red Rings of Death, how it became a real big problem, which I appreciated. Don't get me wrong, because that was very interesting. But it almost felt like they stayed away from the positive because they just destroyed Sony out of the water, and
Right.
Nintendo as well, and only concentrated on the hurdles of what was going on. It kind of almost to feel. I almost felt to me like they held back to not come off as arrogant in that
Right.
portion of the documentary. But
The
what I
360 portion, yeah.
right, right, it almost felt like they were holding back not to come off as arrogant, so nobody would get mad because they pretty much dominated it and changed the whole platform of consoles and
Yeah.
gaming. Once again, they changed it once again. They put it on another level and they future proofed it for other things for the future, alongside with the help of Sega, which is another thing that I'm mad from that portion that they didn't really touch on the OG. The collaboration and relationship that they established with Sega, which helped them tremendously with that collab they did with the games and exclusives and why they did it because of the relationship that they made with Dreamcast, right?
Eh,
Which I thought they
one
should have
sec,
taught.
1 second, Hebop.
Sure,
100. Thank you for joining me. Wild Horse 74. Thank you for joining as well, and thank you for the
absolutely.
super chat, my friend. All right, sorry for that, Hebop.
Hold on one second. What is that for? You know what I'm saying, my brother.
Yeah, yeah,
So so
I'm with you.
so to be honest, I felt like the 360 portion of it, right,
Yeah,
and the Xbox Series X portion of it should have been done as their whole own lone documentary as well. If that makes
yeah,
more sense to you.
yeah. Hey, that's a great way to put it. I didn't even think about that, but that's a great way to put it because the pacing was very weird to me, and how
Hmm.
they condensed, the 360 era again, 8 years somehow condensed in 1.5 parts, which they're about 40 minutes each. So that's about an hour of TV time that went into that era. Which I mean, and for what it's worth, what they touched on was very good, very entertaining, and I was enjoying it. But there are definitely some, I guess,
Right.
spikes in the road in context. There's some missing context
Well,
there, right?
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Because what happens is it starts off so strong and so good, the way you said, right? And it almost feels like when they get to the 360 portion, and definitely the Xbox Series, Xbox One version, part of the dock, feels like it was just tacked on, like it was rushed. Like here, now let's go buy. You get what I'm trying to say? And
Yeah,
not
that's
to
how I
say that
felt
it was,
about the Xbox One part.
yeah, not to say that it was done bad. No, it was done good, but there was just not enough exposition.
Right.
Because you got to understand, if the OG was only 4 years, right? And they
Hmm.
managed to cram in all that information,
Yeah.
all that good insight, what you think would it be with the 360 that it cemented them as a really real powerhouse in the gaming industry and the console space, right?
Right.
And not just PC anymore. And also that it did so much new things to broaden the console space, and the fact that it lasted 8 years and how much dominance they earned through the 8 years, even over Sony, where people still think that Sony outshined them because they end up selling more consoles at the end of the generation. When the reality was the reason why they did was because they still didn't have number one. A lot of regions they couldn't dominate because they were just too biased and only supported PlayStation, right?
Mhm.
Like Japan, for example,
Yeah.
perfect example. And then other things like the fact that Sony kept on making slim versions to take out different features to make it cheaper. Because
Yeah.
when the end of the generation came out, shit, you could get a PS3 for like $199.
Yeah,
versus the 360, the core one, which is the
yeah,
cheaper one, which was the more empty one, right, with the less features and the less
right,
that came with barely the bare minimum, right?
right,
The core one was still at 250 and 275 at the end of the generation.
right. And,
You see
and,
what I'm
and
trying to say?
yeah, real quick, Hebot. For those who aren't aware, when the PS3 first came out, it was selling at a major loss, even more so than usual consoles, because
Oh yeah.
It cost $800 per PlayStation 3,
In
and
some
that's why they
places was
sold it
eight
at
hundred
six
dollars.
hundred. That's why they're
Yes.
selling at 600, and then the PR
Hmm.
disaster that went along with it when it first came out. So when they were removing backwards compatibility and other stuff, they're like USB ports they were removing and stuff, and all these
Hmm.
other features. They're trying to bring costs down
The
hard on the
Bluetooth, everything,
PS3.
bunch of shit. Yeah, yeah. They were doing it because they were trying to. They were losing money, and they were, and then they had their issues with the yellow rings of death, which nobody really remembers and tries not to talk about.
Yeah.
That came from Final Fantasy when it came out, and then
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
Them and Square went to court because Square was blaming the PS3 and they were trying to blame the game.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah, I remember.
And so it was this big hoopla, and people try to act like that didn't happen when that was happening. And then the fucked up part about that was when it happened to people, they didn't charge and fixed it for free like they did with
Yep.
Xbox with the Red Rings. You had to pay $175 to get it repaired.
Yep.
You yourself, the customer. You understand? And so
Yeah.
that's another thing that people don't seem to reflect on. That when Microsoft did anything, they made sure they never felt made the consumer feel at fault. And they took up an ownership for whatever they did wrong. You know what I mean? They've
Yeah.
always done that every time. And I think that's why they've always managed to get out of the hurdle or the rut and have success ultimately at the end of the day, right? Give
Right.
me, you know what I'm saying? So yeah. So then that was one of the that was one of the biggest issues
Hmm.
that in which I was talking about that you brought up and to the attention in your video that I said that you were right. I felt the same way. I felt like, listen, this is so well done and so in depth that they really needed to give me 1 second on them. I'm
All right. All right. Well, while Hebot is taking a break, yeah, the doc. Please don't let if
I'm
you
back.
think
I'm
that
back.
there's okay. Yeah. Well,
I'm
let me.
sorry.
Yeah, real quick. If you
Go ahead.
think
Go
that,
ahead. Finish.
if you think that any negativity means that we didn't like the documentary, it's not.
Oh
It's
no
not
no
even
no
close to
no
that. It was
no.
a great.
Absolutely not.
Please, I'm saying it right here. Gaming fans, gaming
In
historians,
case you need
you're
it.
gonna love it, man.
Oh
For any
yeah, yeah. On
G4
the
fans,
contrary, the reason that what we're critiquing, right? I'm
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, my brother. What Unlimited is trying to say, what we're critiquing, is because it was so well done that we wanted justification for the part of the 360 story
yep,
and justification for the part of the Xbox One story.
yeah, exactly.
You see
And,
what I'm
and
trying to say?
yeah, and for any G4 fan, there used to be this show called Icons, right? And that was their kind of documentary style show, except it would only be one episode usually, and so they could only squeeze a historical, like if it was about Atari, they'll have to squeeze the whole history of Atari in an hour. This is 6 parts, so they go into a hell of a lot more detail than what you could usually get, except for the Xbox One generation, which is where again I did have some issue there. All right, but he bought like you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So like Unlimited is giving a very good valid point. Don't take it as us talking about it in a bad way. No, it was just so well done that it gave you that appetite. Like, wait, why they only get one episode and dedicated one episode to the 360 and one episode to the Xbox One?
Right.
See, and the thing is, I don't know if this came from the standpoint of the actual person doing the documentary, because I
Hmm.
don't know if it was funded by Microsoft or if it was a project that was done by a fan that wanted to do it and he just
Right.
didn't have enough funding to do it longer or separate it in parts, maybe, because that
Right.
may very well be the case. But what I think should happen is if he had success with this, whoever was the one in charge, whether it was Microsoft itself or the documentary maker himself, if he had success, which I think he pretty much has, had with this documentary, they
Mhm.
should really think about going back and giving further details on how deep the rabbit hole went with 360
Right.
and with the Xbox One, because there's just too much things that happen
Yeah.
and changed, and that happened and changed, and that meant something to the gaming industry, to just have it in one 40-minute or 45-minute documentary piece, or episode rather, right?
Right.
It's the same thing like the Xbox One. In the Xbox One, it comes off as okay, maybe they just wanted to brush it off. But the problem with that is, when it comes to the Xbox One part,
Hmm.
is that it almost feels like Microsoft decided, okay, let's just let people feel like they were right, right?
Right.
And that we were wrong and not push the issue.
Yeah.
Instead of
Exactly.
act right, you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Instead
It,
of actually being like, no, look, you guys pushed the issue, but you closed our hand. You didn't give us an opportunity to expand upon it. And you saw with some of the people that spoke on it, they even said the fans weren't ready. Xbox was ahead of the
yeah.
game, and they were on top of what was going to happen inevitably.
You,
If you
and you know
saw,
what?
hmm
Yeah. Exactly, Heba. And let me add to this. Right. It should have gave clarity the way that it gave a lot of people clarity on the OG Xbox and even the 360. I saw people who had clarity on the 360. The
hmm
Xbox
hmm
One generation should have had that same clarity to people who watched it of, oh, so that was, that was the attention. That's what really happened. For example, they mentioned the DRM situation,
hmm
but
hmm
they should have explained it better to the point that people, people came out of it like, oh, we were completely wrong about the DRM thing back
right,
in 2013.
right.
That
Oh, we
the
took it out of context
Yeah, or took it out of content. And
or blew it out of proportion. Right.
yeah,
hmm
E-Rock, thank you for joining me, my brother. So subscribe to E-Rock.
Era.
Yeah, subscribe to E-Rock, by the way. And the
Yes,
Legend
sir.
350, we good, man. We here talking about the Xbox documentary and just enjoying the conversation. But
Yes.
yeah, back to it. Yeah, see, yeah, that's what I mean, man. The same that I felt like I've really it was the Xbox One part. I mean, the 360 part was bothering me, but
hmm
at least there was some context there, and there's enough that I felt satisfied, even though I knew that there's way more to the story there.
Right, right, right. But with the
Especially when it,
Xbox One, it's different. The
well, like,
Xbox
yeah,
One feels very empty because. Go
because
ahead.
I
Go ahead.
mean,
I'm sorry.
because it's like for I don't know, man. Because all right, you bring on the likes of Don Matrick, and it was nice. It was nice to see. It was nice to see again. It was so great to see these people in gaming I haven't seen in ages. Don Matrick, Peter Moore, and the like. You bring them on,
hmm
and and when it came to the Xbox One section, it's like they neutered them or gave them notes saying don't say this
Yes.
about it or something.
Yes. Yes.
And yet, but my thing is like, okay, the Xbox One has the least information because I remember Seamus Blackley telling the
Yes.
story about the original Xbox before. Now this
Yes.
documentary went into way more detail, but I at least knew
Yes.
about some of the stuff he did. The 360
Yes.
era again, I knew about some of this stuff because there are even books about these topics. On the
Yes.
Xbox One, there's I don't think there are any
Yes.
books on it.
On the Xbox One, there's a bunch of misinformation.
Yeah, yeah,
Tons.
exactly. Yeah,
Too many secrets.
exactly. Why couldn't they? In the same way they got Seamus Blackley and all them to talk about how the Xbox came together. Why couldn't
hmm
they ask Phil? Hey Phil, what made you do a soft reboot with the in releasing the Xbox One X and Xbox One? The Xbox One S didn't even get mentioned. But but
Yes.
but that was important to the soft reboot they did in
Everything.
2016.
hmm
Yeah. Why?
Listen, listen. I'm going to say something, okay? That's
Mhm.
excellent points because that's exactly what I'm saying. It felt like they just shoved it under the rug with the Xbox One portion and we're basically telling the people, yeah, you were right. We were wrong. Let's move on, right?
Yeah.
Which I felt was wrong because, to be honest with you, the Xbox One generation is probably more important than the other two generations put together.
Yep.
And the people were like, "What? You're crazy. You're fucking retarded." No, think about what the Xbox One went through, what they had to go through. They were on the verge of getting closed down and
Yeah.
not being supported. There was misinterpretations of what they said. They didn't get an opportunity to explain anything. They were just down the throat. Even though Don Magic clearly says in that damn documentary, the idea was to show you all the features and how we are going to incorporate making the box a unified box where everything was included, like cable, you know,
Yeah.
apps, streaming services. Because when they say the word cable, it meant you could use the Xbox One as a cable box. You didn't even
Yeah.
need to have a cable box from your cable provider. So
Yeah. Exactly.
you no longer had to pay for a cable box and that extra money they charge you
Yep.
because you could use your Xbox. That's what he was talking about,
Yeah.
right? But
It,
people took it as, oh my God, they want the console to be a cable box only.
yeah.
Like, you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, and you know what? And the perfect representation of that were the Angry Joe clips they used
Oh,
because
yes.
that as annoying as Angry Joe was in those clips, that was the original sentiment, which was crazy because I
Mm-hmm.
remember that was only 8, 9 years ago. I remember this stuff like it was yesterday. I
Mm-hmm.
it was so look when they first did that initial reveal to first of all. Like they said, E3 was only a few weeks away, so the games were going to come
Mm-hmm.
in. The games were going to be shown anyway. People always
Mm-hmm.
get that E3 mixed up with the reveal, by the way, and I'm glad the
Mm-hmm.
documentary cleared that up because for years I had to hear 2013 E3 was bad when it wasn't. How it was
It
actually
wasn't.
great.
Absolutely not. It
Yeah,
was probably
but
their best E3 that whole
yeah,
generation,
yeah. But
to
the
be
point
honest.
is that reveal. First of all, that reveal was for the was for the people there in the audience and
Yeah.
for like stockholders and
It was
shit.
just a reveal. It was just a reveal
Yeah,
to show. And he said it clear as day. We knew E3, and you hear when Aaron says it, you hear when Major Nelson said it, you hear it when Don Matrick says it. We knew that in E3 we were going to kill it because we had the games.
yeah, exactly,
You
and they
heard
did.
when they said it. You heard when they said it. So we
Yeah,
knew we were going to be able to show them. But then when they showed people like Jeff Keighley and Angry Joe and McCaffrey, yeah, but they didn't show games.
right.
It was supposed to be about games. No, it wasn't. Because if you go back and look at the PS4 reveal, all they showed was schematic charts of the hardware,
Yep.
the controller, and two demos showing Killzone and I think was Knack of what they were going to look like. That was it. That was the whole reveal for PS4.
Right.
Okay. Microsoft comes in here, shows you a finished box, the product, what it's going to look like, how it's going to be featured, how it's going to work. Everything was done. You didn't see no schematic. You didn't see no hardware, what it was going to look like. No, everything was finalized.
Yep.
All they were trying to do is show you how it was going to work. And I hate that they showed when Don Matrick was talking about how Connect was so successful, right? But
Hmm.
then they don't go into the idea and the explanation of the reason why we wanted to unify the Connect is because
Right.
we knew people were going to use it as a streaming machine to do videos because you could do it right on the console, and we wanted to make it a unified experience because of that, without them having to feel like they got to buy it separate and pay extra money. Right.
Right.
On top of that, the Connect was the number one selling peripheral
Yeah.
of all time.
Yep.
30 million units. No peripheral in the history of video games, not even till today, has done those numbers, not even close.
Right.
So obviously, as a businessman, Matrix knew, what do you do? We got to capitalize on this because it did well. So let's do it better, but make it part of the whole
Right.
gaming console experience. And that's why I said it makes sense. Or when they talked about for 3 seconds about Xbox movie studios.
Hmm.
So Sony could be glorified, right? About the shit with Spider-Man because
Yeah.
they're doing Spider-Man movies, because they're doing an Uncharted movie. But Microsoft was doing something wrong when they wanted to make it where you can play the games and they were going to try to connect the games with TV shows, kind of like Netflix or HBO Max,
You know
doing a
what?
Rise, doing a Rise Center Rome TV show, doing a Forza Horizon TV show to make it part of the universe and even add stories to give you more in-depth uh, explanations and lore of those worlds.
All right. Man, working at Microsoft, if I was a long term employee, I'd feel sick to my stomach because right now we're getting all these related movies and TV shows,
Hmm.
and they were trying to do this 8 years ago, being ahead of the game, and
Under their own roof, mind
yeah,
you.
exactly. Under
Nobody was
their
gonna have. They were gonna have creative control of everything.
Yeah, exactly. Man, if I was if I was a long term Microsoft employee, I'd be feeling sick to my stomach seeing.
Mhm.
I mean, the line about gamers not being ready is probably the only thing Jeff Keighley or Ryan McCaffrey, one of those two, said it got
It was
right.
Ryan. It was Ryan. Not
Yeah,
Ryan. It was Jeff Keighley. It was Jeff Keighley.
yeah,
No, no,
got right
no,
that
no,
whole
no, no, no. It wasn't.
documentary.
No, it wasn't. I'm lying. It was the gentleman, the black gentleman, the one that was
Oh
with the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
glasses.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think he's
yeah.
from. I think he's from Forbes. I'm not
That,
sure.
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right.
It
It was
was
him.
him. He said it. He
Yeah,
said the long of it was Microsoft was ahead of the game.
yep,
They knew the future, and the gamers weren't ready. He's the one
yep,
who pointed it out.
yeah.
Jeff
And
didn't say it.
he was
You
spot
know,
on.
Keely wasn't gonna fucking say it because them motherfuckers
No,
didn't
no.
want to admit the fact that Sony wasn't doing the right thing or they weren't doing innovative. They didn't say shit. It was them. It was that
Yeah,
gentleman who
yeah,
said
yeah.
it. I
Oh,
forgot
well,
his
you know
name.
what? Ryan McCaffrey had the dumbest line in the thing. In part five, he said 100% of the Xbox 360s
Here we go.
had a 100% failure rate, and I even said in my review, no. First of all, the 360 wouldn't be around if 100% of the 360 failed back in
Yes,
2005, 2006.
exactly.
The failure
Mhm.
rate was the look, to put it in perspective, even a 10% failure rate would be a massive failure for any product, right? And
Mhm.
that's why they had to respond so heavily, because it was an unusually high failure rate for a technology product, but it wasn't 100%. If it was 100%, there'd be no Xbox because it would be
Mhm.
impossible to fix them as fast as they did. Do you know how
Not only.
high?
Mhm.
Do you know how fast the 360 sold that first year or two, and that they were having the
Listen.
issue, and how
Listen.
high? What?
Listen. The failure rate would have been if the consumers were paying for it out of pocket and nothing was done. Microsoft took the whole bill. It was almost $2 billion that it cost them. But what would have been more exciting was if they would explain, listen, this is how they fixed it because they did the new elite version and model. All that went away. That
Yeah, yeah,
entire
yeah.
issue went away.
Well, actually,
You see what I'm saying?
I think they even had it fixed a bit before the slim version and all that, because my 360 never had my because I got my first Xbox 360 somewhere around 2007, right? And it never read ring of death and none of that on me. No, 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 not 2007. I'm sorry, it was 2006 because Marvel Ultimate Alliance was came with it, and and it never read ring on me, right? So I know that some of them were fixed or something like that or didn't have the issue. But yeah, the absurdity to say that it had 100% failure
Right.
rate. That I paused a documentary and
It's
I was
just
like,
dumb.
I could
It's
yeah
dumb. I
I
laughed
couldn't
when you
believe
said
the
that shit.
editing team. Yeah, I couldn't believe the editing team kept that part in.
Well, that was Ryan McCaffrey 15 minutes of fame. They wanted to let him see how much of a schmuck he is. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because I feel because me and Sega Man, no, Sega Forever, we talked about this. It
Uh
was
huh.
brief, but we talked about this. And shout out to him, obviously. We talked
Yeah.
about it. He said that the best part about the documentary in that section was that you had to see their faces because at the end of the day, they were wrong.
Yeah.
Even after all that stupidity they said, people like Angry Joe, people like Jeff Keighley, they were all wrong because they swore up and down, no, Microsoft's going to fail, they're not doing good. And at the end of the day, they're wrong because they completely proved them that that wasn't the case. And they
Right.
had to sit there in the documentary and admit to it. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
he. So it was funny we were talking about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. If you look at it in that perspective, you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. He has a
Yeah.
great point.
Hey.
Um, 100% failure rate. When I heard you said that, I was laughing. I was like, I know that shit was funny. Like, yeah, that's true. Because it don't make no sense. Obviously, failure rate was
No.
mean they failed. They couldn't fix it. They completely
Right.
fixed that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it cost them $2 billion. You fucking knucklehead.
Yeah.
How you say a failure rate? Failure rate was if they would have been bankrupt, had to close down Xbox, and they never, and they didn't
Yeah.
even know.
Exactly.
Dummy.
There wouldn't be an Xbox rate if it.
They
I
became
mean,
stronger for that.
yeah.
If anything, they became a bigger Trojan horse because of that. If
Yeah.
anything, if you want to be realistic about it, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's the same way I feel with. I am sorry, did I cut you off? I don't know if you can say something.
no, 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 no. I was listening to you.
No, okay. So that's exactly how I felt with the Xbox One. The
Hmm.
Xbox One was a more important pivotal point because that's another part when the
Yep.
documentary in that part where they were like, it wasn't about the games. I'm like, what are you talking about? All the only console that had games was the Xbox.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Microsoft, why did you allow this in the documentary?
Right.
Why? Because they didn't go into it that when they released, they were the only ones with games anyway, while the
Right.
competitors didn't offer that.
I mean, the console came out with Forza Horizon 5, Dead Rising, Max Curse of the
Mm-hmm.
Brotherhood, Rise on the Rome, Killer Instinct,
Mm-hmm.
that Connect fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Crimson
from
Dragon, Loco
Crimson Dragon.
Psycho,
Yep. Look.
Loco Psycho, fucking Titanfall, because
Yeah.
it was within the window of the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Fucking Dead Rising 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They had
Yeah.
freaking Fighters Ultimate, the
When.
Sports Rivals. They had a bunch of games and
Yeah.
even smaller games like Super Time Force. That was
Yeah.
only on there for that time,
Right. Right.
which was an excellent game and reviewed very well. And nobody knew that it was going on PlayStation afterwards. I really think it went because obviously the attach rate because it was selling well, so they figured
Right.
let's put it
Right.
on PlayStation. But at that point, you could only play it on an Xbox, right? D4, right? We had D4.
That's right.
You know what I
D4.
mean? We had so
Dark
many
Dreams Don't
different.
Die.
That's right. We had so many different diverse games
Yep.
and an amount of games. There was at least 15 games available to play during the Xbox first year, right?
Right.
Because later that year,
That's
that
they had
following
Sunset
holiday,
Overdrive and all
we
that.
had Sunset Overdrive alongside Forza Horizon 2,
Yeah.
you know? And I think it was also Rare Replay, right? Was it that we
Yeah.
got
Oh yeah.
too,
That
or no?
Rear Replay was 2015, I believe.
All
If it's
right, so then we must have gotten Gears Ultimate, I think it was,
yeah,
which was
that's
the
it.
remaster.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Gears
Gears Ultimate,
Ultimate. Yeah.
which was the remaster of Part 1,
Right.
which was
No,
excellent.
it was a remake. It was a remake. It was
Yeah,
a.
the
It was
remake, yeah.
yeah. Cause I remember.
I
I
know.
remember. It was 1080p 60. It had
Yeah,
extra
brand new
content.
graphical assets, brand new
Yeah.
assets.
Yeah. That's what
They
I'm saying.
they
The graphics were incredible.
Oh
And
yeah, oh yeah. They
that
even
remake.
implemented. Remember they implemented game features from 2 and 3 that were never there in Part 1.
Right. Right.
They
Right.
even
That's right.
expanded on the
It, it,
multiplayer.
it
They added the
it
story content
revitalized
that
the
was
Gears
never there.
community.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. It was unexpected also, so it was a nice, fresh, like it felt nice because it wasn't expected. Nobody saw it
Right.
coming. Nobody was like, "Oh, they remaking or remastering or remaking Years One." Nobody expected that. Nobody saw that, and they did that, which was
Yeah.
great. So again, all those games was available within the first year window of Xbox.
Hmm.
When you went to PlayStation, it was just Infamous, Knack, Resogun, Killzone, and I think that year they released the remaster of well, their so-called remaster of The Last of Us, where it came
Oh
out
yeah.
1080p 60, but it didn't even have the multiplayer component, if
Right.
I'm not
Right.
mistaken.
No. No.
That
They
was all they
removed it.
had that year. Remember, that's all they had that year. It was supposed to
Yeah.
get, I think it was Uncharted or something like that. They pushed it back. Then they got the following year. I think it was Bloodborne and
And
Until Dawn.
yeah, Bloodborne came out in 2015. I remember because IGN played that game for a fucking year because
Yeah,
there
yeah.
wasn't,
It was like a
cause,
year later or 2 years later. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because
You're right.
there wasn't any PlayStation content.
And Until Dawn also. That's the other one, which was the point and click movie one. But
Well,
not to get off the subject, but again, you get the point. The
yeah,
point was I felt real bothered by the fact that they allowed that in there and
right,
didn't expand on it, showing that they were the only ones, really, even though they were getting outsold with the games,
right,
and that Sony was promoting Power Season One.
yeah,
You see what I'm saying? Which was what they were trying to do, but with the games, it had to do with games. Power had nothing to do with the video games.
right,
It was just a show, another show that they created with under Sony, but it wasn't no correlations to any of the games they had. Unlike Microsoft that was trying to unify even the games to be part of the lore in the world with the movies.
right,
You know what I'm saying? Which is what Don Matrick was trying to explain. That's what
yeah,
they wanted to see. That was the vision. And I love it when Major Nelson sat down in his portion of the game of the doc,
Hmm.
where he says all it was you did this, then you did this, and it was because of this. That was it. He
Right.
explained DRM literally with in 3 seconds or in ten
Yeah.
seconds. He said that's all it was. That was all, and people lost their mind. The way he said it, I was like, he's like, really? Like he made it
Yeah.
seem like they lost their mind. Like I can't believe this.
Yeah. Gamers,
Which was cool.
people turn to conspiracy theorists
Oh yeah, yeah,
after
yeah.
that's
Oh yeah.
revealed.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
The CSI is watching you through the Connect.
Everybody in the NSA was watching everybody through the
Yeah.
connect. Hmm We,
You
we were
couldn't
gonna get abducted by aliens.
you couldn't play used games. You couldn't play used games.
Exactly.
The used games ones went out for so long. Even after backwards compatibility came to the Xbox, there are people who still thought it
Oh
couldn't play
no,
used
be
games.
even no, you can't, unlimited. Are you fucking kidding me? When the Series X came out, right?
Uh huh.
I kid you not. When it was about to come out and launch because they were prepping, where I was talking to my friend that was the manager for the
Hmm.
store for GameStop. I heard people talking about it. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get the Series X, it's gonna be great. And they were like, oh man, I never bought an Xbox One all generation. Fuck that. They don't let me play my games. Fuck that. You couldn't play used games of that shit. It's all digital. I'm like, what did you just say? Like people still thought this till that to the very end of the generation.
Oh, that
Still
is
thought
crazy.
that, and it's retarded. It's I mean, people in there and be like, "Oh, you can play your 360 games on your Xbox One." I would run into people like that all the time.
All
They'd
right.
be like, "Oh, I got an Xbox One, but my son has more games on the 360, and he never really can play them, and and so he doesn't use the Xbox One that much." And
Right.
I'm like, you know that you can play 360 games on the Xbox One also. Not every single game, but there's a big amount that you can. And they were
Yeah.
like, "What? Really? For real?" People didn't even know that.
That is crazy.
I'm telling you. I'm like, wow.
Last
I even was
generation.
mind boggled by it because I'm like, that just don't. How's that even possible?
Yeah. Last
But it just
generation was
shows you
just
how many
crazy.
casuals are in the gaming space.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what it is. It's just people that are norm that don't really play it hardcore the way that we are, and
Yep.
just have no clue about what's going on.
Right.
You know,
And, and, and you know what? There are two good things came out of the Xbox One generation. At least two important things.
a
One,
bunch.
well, yeah, a bunch, definitely a bunch. Well, let me. I don't know how to word it then, but there are 2 points
What?
I want to make. I guess that's the
Oh, you
thing.
mean
I
the
want to make
two
two
main
points.
points? Two main
Yeah,
points is what you're saying.
yeah.
Right,
And the
right.
first one was Phil convincing the dollar to take Xbox seriously, so that
Absolutely.
that to me that's the most important move Phil has done since taking over, because what it did was that that's the reason why we got the Bethesda acquisition, right? That's why we
That's
got
right.
all them studios. Microsoft.
The consoles,
Yeah.
the acquisitions of developers,
Yep.
all that came from
Growing the
Phil
developers.
convincing Satya.
Yeah. And so that to me that's the most important move he's made yet. Because it had that trickle down effect to what we got now, right? And
Hmm
everything's paying off from years and years and years of that. And
Yes.
so that what was I trying to say, man?
Go ahead.
Sorry,
You're talking about the two pivotal, most important parts
right, right,
of
right.
the
That's
Xbox
right.
One generation.
That's
I
right.
got you.
That's
I
right.
got your back, brother. I got
Well,
your back.
thank you, thank you. So he convinces Nadala. That's why we got the Microsoft we got now. This
Hmm
Microsoft that's not afraid to spend money, and then not only that, people don't realize 8% of excuse me, 8% of
Sure.
Microsoft earnings, profits come from gaming.
That's right.
And some people might think 8%, that's it. No, 8% is huge. To put into context, Windows is 14% of Microsoft earnings. Their biggest money maker is their cloud service, by the way, by a
hmm
large
hmm
by a large
hmm
majority. So gaming makes more money than the other things like entertainment and stuff in Microsoft, and even their hardware. Gaming makes more money for Microsoft than their hardware division, right? I
hmm
don't think people
hmm
realize that. And so Phil convincing Nadala is why we got what we got. The
That's number
second thing,
one.
the number two was that it got rid of the casuals in the Xbox community. And why is that important? Why is that important? Does it casuals means less sales? No, not at all. What it did is that it took away that casual influence, right? That
hmm
that
hmm
that was it that that so that's why PlayStation does the stuff they do now, where they're They only, the PlayStation only promotes big AAA games because that they think that's what the casuals want instead of what the
That's
gamer
all. That's
wants.
all they concentrate on. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, instead of what the gamer wants. Now, Microsoft, the Xbox One, and going since the Xbox One days now, the last decade or so has been the most diverse Xbox has been, and it's going to even be
Mm-hmm.
more diverse now because they got studios, right? And
Well, I
all
think
these,
that's why they've lost a lot of the hardcore gamers on
yeah,
PlayStation,
yeah,
and they just captured the eyes and support more of just the regular casual people,
yep,
because they kind of lost the messaging of what they were built upon, right? Like what they
yeah,
stand for. They were always they were always looked at as the console that had all types of shit,
yeah,
regardless of how they did it. They did it the wrong way. They did it being
hmm,
snarky, buying everybody off because they have money, they have power. And listen, you have money, you're gonna make your moves fine. I get it. It's a doggy dog world. You do what you gotta do.
right,
But they were always known as the console that had all types of diversity, like
right,
all types of games, all kinds of genres, and they kind of shied away from that. And
yeah,
they didn't even realize what they were doing, but they did it.
yeah.
And
Now,
now
now,
it's like,
if it
go
isn't a
ahead,
if it isn't a big budget third person story game, it
or
gets
movie
no
driven
traction.
type game. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
feels more like a movie than a game. I know
Yeah,
exactly what you're saying.
exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It gets no love from Sony. Like, I mean, a good guy. Go back and check it. Indie last generation. Indie devs are saying Sony abandoned us. There are criticisms from
Mm-hmm.
developers who work with Sony saying Sony didn't promote our game, and then and because it's not, because it's not their third person usual game. Hell, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't. People, remember? I remember Days Gone got some mediocre Metacritic, right? And the PlayStation fans
Mm-hmm.
defended the fuck out the game. Sony didn't green light Days Gone 2 because of the Metacritic score, right?
Right.
That's how
Mm-hmm.
focused. That's the issue with having the casuals. You're
That's all
so
they're
focused
focused on.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, you're so focused on brand recognition and the put marketing. They want to market so bad. This game got this review, 9 out of 10 reviews, 10 out of 10, because that's all they use review scores are, is for marketing purposes. Let's not get it twisted here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why they love Metacritic and stuff. That's why they put too
Mm-hmm.
much focus on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all you PlayStation
Because they
defenders,
get
that's why
bonuses.
you're not.
They get bonuses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why you're not getting Days Gone 2 that you swore up and down was one of the hell. I even saw some gaming channel game one of these gaming channels, the ones with millions of subscribers, even saying some bullshit that it was one of the best games of 2019. After you
Mm-hmm.
got to play it past the first few hours, and now if you got to play a game
Mm-hmm.
6 hours for it to be good, it probably ain't good, man. But
Well, I
that,
mean,
even I mean my
it's
friend,
like when they closed down real quick. I'm sorry,
yeah,
when they closed down the studio Japan, right? They
right,
said it. That was the one development section of their gaming, right, IPs
mhm.
that was making the more creative and
Yeah,
more
yeah,
obscure type things that felt like
yeah.
different
Gravity
and free
Falls,
and fresh, right? And what they
not
said,
Gravity
we closed
Falls.
it down because it's not making us no money.
Yeah, exactly.
They said
Yeah,
it
yeah,
themselves. Yeah,
yeah.
go
They were
ahead,
making.
continue.
Yeah, yeah, they were making that Gravity Falls game. I believe they made that Last Guardian game.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some of the more games that would be considered unique to PlayStation and
Yes.
actually had,
Hmm.
well, Gravity Falls looked like it had gameplay. I've never played the game, so I'm not going to say
Hmm.
it definitively, but it looked like it focused more on gameplay than story,
Well,
right?
it's something interesting. Yeah, it was something
Yeah,
more
yeah,
interesting. It was
yeah, some
less
interesting
story
and
focused. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's not swinging around a city and then watching cutscenes to the point your controller turn off.
like the Last Guardian,
Yeah,
it was focused on story, but it was all throughout you playing the game.
right.
You get what I'm
Yeah,
trying to say?
yeah, yeah.
So
So
that story was playing out as you're playing the game. It was more
yeah,
focused on the game as you're playing, and they gave you the story through your playthrough. That's how it was.
yeah.
That was the
and,
difference,
and
right?
that's because flat out people weren't buying it. Why? Because when you focus on the casual audience, all you care. I mean, your primary goal, every business primary goal is making money. But Microsoft
Hmm.
learned that you can make money by doing things the right way. Sometimes, you don't always have to be a greedy fucking corporation trying to take every single dollar. So sometimes to make money, you gotta give the consumer what they want, and
Yeah,
that's
you gotta
why
spend money.
Xbox is more valuable. And that was the beauty
Hmm.
of last generation because
Hmm.
we got stuff like Game Pass, the greatest service
Well,
ever in gaming.
now
Out
that
of
you say that, that's another, I think, third pivotal point of the Xbox One generation
yeah,
when they created Game Pass,
yeah, and,
and when
and
they
that's
did,
and
and
that's
when they
another thing.
decided,
As
and they
important as
decided, let's
game,
put our IPs there, day
yeah,
and date, right?
you're right.
That was
And
a
as a,
game changer, dude.
yeah, that was a controversial game.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember the hot takes. I, I'm not going to play a game I don't spend money on versus when I
Yeah.
played 60. You know, the
Or they
stupid,
have no,
stupid
or they
hot
must
take.
be low value. Then I must be
Yeah,
done. Then I must be, they must not be high quality because they're just throwing them in there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, and as important as Game Pass is, even that didn't get much talk about or mentioned in the documentary, right? You think
Yes,
something like Game Pass,
exactly.
you
That's
think
why I
something
said
like
what I
Game
said.
Pass, yeah, you think something like Game Pass, they'd at least say, hey, so this is how did Game Pass come about? Well, we thought this, and this. You know, our research team saw this, so I thought, hey, let's have a service for games, and the engineering team did X, Y, Z, but we didn't get none of that, none of it.
Or how they help people like Moon Studios,
Yeah,
developers that like indie studios like Moon Studios or Studio MDHR that they refinanced their house for Christ's sakes, almost lost their home,
yeah,
and they found success on the game and on Xbox
yep,
and then PC, and they still allowed them to put it on PlayStation
yep,
to help them, or how they created the adaptive controller to allow people with deficiencies that could never play
right,
actually play games, where they could blow on a piece of equipment and actually have control of what they're doing,
right,
right?
yeah,
Accessibility, where they
right,
opened up with accessibility to everyone, even when you want to play competitively. Oh, here we made an elite controller just for you, so you can play competitively. You see what I'm
right,
trying to say? There's
yeah,
so many layers that were done during Xbox One that I truly, truly, wholeheartedly feel believe it was more important, or if not just as important, as the OG Xbox era,
yeah,
the 360 era combined.
yeah,
Because the OG Xbox era and the 360 era is what Xbox One is combined as far as the generation, as
right,
far as what happened. That they were in a down spiral, they were almost lost, they almost went to closure, came back from that,
yeah,
fixed all the issues while dealing with the media, while dealing
hmm,
with the hate, while dealing with the losses, while dealing with the rebuilding, still managed to bring out the product, still managed to refurbish and fix the product, still
yep,
managed to kill the narrative of all these little things like power, right?
yeah,
Still managed to envision what they wanted with other things like combining movies with or future projects with the games. Still kept a very high quality of level of games coming out with the smaller stuff. Still managed to give backwards compatibility. You know what I'm trying to say? There's
right,
so many. Still managed to convince the independent space no longer to need no longer needing the need of a real publisher, right? Of a
right,
big publisher to publish the game, and gave them the freedom to self-publish themselves,
right,
because they even allowed the console not only to be region free but to become a dev kit. So if
right,
you're a developer, you can use that Xbox to make your game. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
They did so much on the Xbox One generation that I felt like it was not only criminal, but almost insulting that
right,
they didn't go in depth with the Xbox One part and portion of the dock. That's
right,
why I said to you, I feel like the 360 version part of it and the Xbox part of it should both have their own dedicated documentary,
agree,
because it's just too much information that is too important, not only to the gamer, but what it did for gaming, the impact, how
hmm,
it changed everything, like
yeah,
Xbox Live, with the achievements themselves,
right,
with the arcade marketplace, with the growth of independent developers, all those things, right?
right,
And that all started not only with OG, but it continued and expanded with 360, and then moved right along to the Xbox One. And the
Right.
Xbox One cemented them completely in the fact that no matter how hard things get, they're a force to be reckoned with because they were going
Exactly.
to go away.
Yeah.
They were going to go away. And that question you said was excellent. Why didn't they sit Phil Spencer down and say, Phil, so how did you feel about not being able to fight back and fix things, right? When
Hmm.
Microsoft had no backup, because at that point, the Xbox brand wasn't backing them up. He had to earn that right with Satya. How he was able to convince Satya, how you were able to prove to Satya all these things to make
Yeah.
Xbox profitable. How did you do it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
That
saying?
that's a wonderful story right there.
And that in alone in itself would be so intriguing and interesting because that would probably take a couple of hours just to explain it because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that hurdle. I mean, look at Phil when he first started. He looks skinny. He looks
Hmm.
very young still. He looks very well put together, very young still, no gray hairs. And look at Phil now. Phil
Right.
got gray hairs up the wazoo.
Yeah.
He looked like he a wrestler now because he got some chunk or some huskiness to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say?
Yeah.
He looks like a man that went through some shit and back.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Look when he first had the interview with Major Nelson when he first got the helm, and look at him now. He looked like a man that went through hell and back, like he was broken,
Right.
and he was pulling out his hairs, even though he didn't show it to us. You see what I'm saying? That's
Hmm.
probably all the sleepless nights, all the meetings, all the traveling. That's what did it to him. I
Yeah.
guarantee you.
Yeah.
Plus handling his own personal life at home with his family, his daughters, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you see, and we don't have that gratitude. Showing his point of view and his story under that part of the documentary would have been excellent
Right.
because
Yeah.
that would have shut, or even the like the controversy about, well, the backlash with Fable Legends, with
Hmm.
Platinum Games, all the hoopla during the 360 that they said why they let go of 343s, saying that they were felt trapped. They should have gone in depth about that because
Right.
that all played a pivotal role on Xbox long term with the future that they had from that point forward until now. All those things were key roles on their successes and their failures. You see?
Right.
And that's why when I saw that you said that, again, not to sound like a broken record, I agreed with what you said a lot. I feel like it didn't do it justice. It wasn't, it should have been done more in depth, especially with how excellent the first four episodes are when they talk about OG Xbox. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
because if you go look for places and stuff, even though they didn't make a documentary themselves, there's documentaries on PS1 era, PS2 era, PS3 era, and for Christ's sake, now on PS4 era. There's documentaries going in depth about every era. With this, it felt kind of like they cheaped out 360 and Xbox
Hmm.
One. And what makes it more frustrating is even though they cheaped it out, what they did was still satisfying.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So
I'm
that
with
that
you.
made it even worse. That made it even worse. So yeah, those were my thoughts about what I wanted to share with you guys. And you, when I heard you say that about how I felt with those two portions of the doc, and I
Yeah.
really hope that they can actually go back someday and go more in depth because there's a lot, especially like you said
Yeah.
with the
There's a lot.
Xbox One. With the Xbox One, there's a lot of misinformation, unanswered questions, mystery, even the whole thing about sales. They
Yeah.
didn't really go into sales. He was just saying, "Oh, I think we were getting outsold 8-1," but that doesn't really say the ending sales of the generation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or how that didn't really matter because at the end of the day, it's about the sales from the software and what they were
Yeah.
doing other than that.
Which
You know?
they explained that in the earlier parts. That was one of the hurdles that they
Hmm.
fell through. The fact
Hmm.
that the money in gaming is based off the software, not the hardware. But
Right.
I would love for them to tie it all back together with the Xbox One portion. That would have been a great
It would
way
have been
to
very
continue.
fitting.
Yeah,
It would have been very fitting. Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
Let me read this comments real quick. Wild Horse was asking, how do you figure PlayStation will do with Spartacus with little studios, probably mostly old titles, which we get on backwards compatible for free. Yeah, from Spartacus, I think it's just it's upgrade or something to PS Now. I don't
Well,
fucking know, man. PlayStation.
what they said it was. If you don't know, what they said it was going to be is they were going to unify their PSN Now, right, which is to play
Right,
online, right,
right,
with their PlayStation with their PlayStation Network, which
right.
is the internet with their streaming service. But they're doing it in tiers, not one whole thing like Xbox. You know how Xbox includes everything for a
Yeah,
cheaper price, right? For a
yeah,
cheaper price. You actually save money, right?
right.
That's not how they're doing it. They're doing it in layers, but they're doing it as tiers. Like with tier one, you get access to both services and probably a limited amount of games, right? With tier two, you probably get access to PS4, PS5, upgrades free maybe, and then maybe PS3. And then with tier 3, the biggest one, or tier one, you'll get access to all their legacy titles that are in there. Obviously, they're not going to be enhanced. They're not going to be done. It's just going to be the ones they already have. Probably the ones they already have in the store, but you don't have to pay for them. You can just play them from that tier if you pay for it. But then the question that still needs to be answered is how much are they charging for those tiers?
Hmm.
Because if they're going
Yeah,
to do the Nintendo route and say tier one is $70 a month, or $60 a month, or $50 a month, that's ass rape. That don't There's nowhere near comparison to what Game Pass is doing. So
right.
at the point it would be at that point would be like, why you even bother to do it? It's pointless because it's still not Game Pass. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's so Sony to just do it in the most butchered way possible.
To be
Oh
honest, I just
man.
think they're broke ass and they just can't afford it. That's just me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's
I
just me. That's what I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, he was also saying my son today still uses the Connect with Xbox One for party and voice chats. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what's up.
Yeah.
The Connect was dope. Feature wise, it was dope. I personally didn't like the
And it was
instant
never
game.
forced. It was never
Yeah, yeah.
forced.
Oh yeah,
Unlimited was
that
never forced.
right, right.
The whole point is people make it seem like it was forced. Yes, you had to buy it together. But when you Twitch and you stream, do you not use cameras?
Yeah,
Yes. When you make videos, when you do your background with your green screen, do you not use the camera? Yes. When you're doing any type of movement, like turning on your entire system by just saying Xbox on,
right.
and the Connect would turn on everything, was amazing.
Yeah.
Train Connect, Xbox off, and it would turn everything off. Just that alone for me was amazing.
I mean, I used to like having the codes and just bring it up to the
Oh
camera
yeah,
and
another
boom.
thing, and just scanning it in 3 seconds instead of putting it in, boom, it'd be right in.
Yeah,
It wasn't forced. It was an option to make the experience as a tool and for the gaming console better. That's all it was. And that's
hmm,
why I'm like, why people get so ass hurt? Why people get so ass hurt at, at the simplest things? And then not only that, why do they take it so out of context?
yeah.
Because they take it way out of context,
Way
way
out
out
of
of context.
context.
Because there was nothing like that. And that's why I said it was important for them to dive in on the story of Connect, and even what they were going for with the Xbox One, starting
Hmm.
from 360. That should have been They should have deep dive into that a lot more, like more in depth.
Right.
Shit, I didn't like the fact when they were talking about how we regret what happened with Lionhead Studios. We wanted to connect with them more and do this and do that. I was like, listen, y'all didn't do it on purpose. You didn't have the funds at the time.
No,
They
no,
didn't have the
I'm going to defend them on that one. I actually did like that, and the reason why I like that is because people still lost their jobs at the end of the day, and
right, right.
I think they're coming
What?
more from the human element in the sense that yeah, we had to let people go, we had to make the business decision, and I do believe Phil when he said that if it happened today, they would have just kept Lion Studios and
Right, right,
refocused them or
right.
something.
No, no, but I'm saying I didn't like the fact that they made it seem like they did it on purpose, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Like they did it because they weren't thinking straight.
right,
No, because they were not in a position at that point. that they have the backup from Microsoft or the company
Right.
to develop a better relationship to keep them open.
Yep.
It was a business decision that at that point in their career or
They had to
in the
make.
Xbox, they had to make that decision. Just like they said, the only way they were able to refocus what they needed to do for Xbox One and able to to dedicate the money more on other things,
Hmm.
they had to shut down the game studio they created for the movie studio rather.
Oh yeah, right, right,
This,
right.
you get what I'm saying? The
Yeah,
same way they explained that, that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
It came off as them trying to say sorry to Lionhead,
yeah.
but it almost came off like they were doing it like, oh, we were stupid, we did it because it was a dumb move, or we did it. I'm not
Right.
thinking straight. When that wasn't the case,
Yeah,
that's what I mean from that point of view. But I
right.
do like that they owned up to it and said, listen, we felt bad. A lot of people were lives changed. They lost their jobs. That from that point of view, I appreciate them doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for
And
sure,
you know,
for sure.
and speaking of which, that was one of the pros for the documentary to me. They touched on the good and the bad, and that's
Yes.
important because when you if you make a all right, let me give an example. Right, Star Wars for any Star Wars fans out there, there is a Disney when Disney did their documentary. I don't know if it was a documentary or whatever it was for the Disney version of Star Wars. It was a
Hmm.
fluff piece. It was they made it seem like everyone were friends. There is no there are no issues. It was like, hey, we made this awesome Star Wars movie, you know. But and yet, but in this documentary, they hell, they're talking about Bill Gates cursing them out, the issues they had, the mistakes they made, how So that I thought that part was really good, owning up to mistakes, and then not only not owning up, but and then following up with talking about the good they did as well, and or how they did better, whatever the case is. So stuff like that, I thought was also very very done very well in the documentary. I was so glad that it wasn't just 6 parts of ass kissing, basically. Oh, okay. It looks like he bought
No,
step
no, I'm
there.
here. I'm here. I
Oh,
just tried it. My wife is talking to me, so I muted. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. Well, I was saying I like I like how it touched on both the good and the bad, and it wasn't
Right.
just 6 parts of ass
Yeah,
kissing.
yeah. Absolutely,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah. What's up, other Zing? Thank you for making it. And oh, and Wild Horse said that he got his son the Series S for Christmas. That's what's up,
Oh,
man. I'm glad
nice. Oh,
I'm
nice,
glad you're
nice,
able to get
nice.
one for him.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. He's gonna enjoy it for sure.
Oh,
For
definitely.
sure. That quick resume, man, that's just fun. And when you
Mm-hmm.
get that backwards compatibility, that
See
ease
them
of
loading.
access,
Look,
that loading
the
time,
first
all
the
that
first
stuff.
time he plays a game and he tries to step away and it's already playing, he gonna be blown away. No more bathroom breaks during loading times or
Oh, you
nothing.
not lying, dude. I
You
played.
you can't even get a soda no more. Nothing.
No, no. Dude, I do these retro game nights as you see with the 360.
Yeah.
Like I did the Curse Crusade and I also did Splatterhouse. I just
Mhm.
haven't uploaded the video because I don't have a thumbnail out there yet. So it's
Right.
already ready to go. Oh my god, the loading time is horrendous.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize how bad the loading time was still in the 360. Like it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
holy shit! I thought that this was bad.
It's funny. I've heard Erock brought up people saying, "Boy, I bet Xbox wish they go back to the 360." No, the fuck I don't. Because
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
loading times are amazing. I mean, your son's gonna enjoy it, man. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Merry Christmas to everybody in the chat, by the way, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome, dude. Any kid
Yeah, yeah.
getting a new console for Christmas, that shit. Remember when we used to
See,
get that? That
those
was
are the
like,
best.
oh my
Those are the
god.
best gifts.
Yes, sir.
Those are the
We
ones he's gonna
used
be
to faint.
remembering.
We used to faint. Like
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Hey, that's what your son. That's the type of gifts your son gonna be remembering.
Yes, sir. He ain't gonna
So,
remember
so
anything about how great
I
it
feel
was.
bad. I feel bad for the people that got him socks because he ain't gonna care about them. He gonna
Oh
play that.
damn. Jesus, hell yes. I can't believe people do that. They know kids. What they like is stuff for kids,
Yeah,
and they go give them some boring gift like I don't know, like a book organizer, a
yeah,
bookshelf, or something. Like what? Kids
yeah,
don't like that stuff.
yeah. They want the toys and the
You
games.
give them that stuff all during the year.
Yeah, I
Christmas, you
remember.
give them the goodies. That's it.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid. Real quick, real story. Real quick Christmas story he bought.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was a kid, and I was maybe 10 years old, and I wanted a Game Boy, right? So I found out I found out my parents got me the Game Boy, and they got me this X-Men game with it, right? So I would sneak when I found out I found it wrapped, so I surgically took off the wrapping and played my Game Boy, and every time they'd come back home from work, I'd rewrap it, put it back under the tree, and so on Christmas Day I would pretend that I was shocked. Little did they know I've been playing with it the whole time.
That's funny as hell. That's funny as hell. That's a funny story. It's like when when you got stuff at Christmas too, and you came back and you wanted to. The first thing you did, like after you got your stuff, is I can't wait to go back to tell my
Mhm.
friends and show them I
Yeah,
want to go get them, but I got to drop you off,
yeah,
and you got people that need rides. You know what I'm saying? Then you're
right.
dying to tell them, or at least the girls, and you're dying to tell them what you got. You see what
Yeah,
I'm trying to say? And
yep.
then you're like, yeah, 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 can't wait, can't wait. So yeah, Tristan story, man. That I can remember whenever I got my for the first time when I got all my GI Joes, or
Uh-huh.
when I got my first Power Wheel,
Right.
or when I got my all my He-Man stuff, or
Mhm.
when I got my first Atari or my ColecoVision,
Right.
my Master System. It's always those memories, they can't be replicated. They always stay there
Yeah,
with you
yeah.
forever. They
Yeah,
stay with you forever.
yep.
You know. Oh man, that was great. So yeah,
Mhm.
unlimited. That's what I'm saying. Like I really liked it, and I don't think there's much more we can talk and expand
Yeah,
upon it because then we're gonna
yeah.
sound like a broken record.
Right, right,
I think
right.
people I think people got the idea, but it's nice to be able to come out and get the opportunities to flesh out the thoughts because
Yeah,
I did see a lot of people just be like, "Oh, it was fantastic. It was great. I loved it."
yeah.
Yeah, okay. But then you see them say things like, "Oh, it's great to see that Microsoft finally owned up and said that 2013 was all a mix-up and that it was shit."
Right.
And that's why it bothered me. That's what it rubbed me the wrong way. Because
Yeah,
I'm like, no, man, you guys, 2013 for me was excellent,
yeah,
excellent. Because they learned from their mistakes, but at the same time, it opened up the door for them to become greater than what they were already were.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
It
man. That
gave them, it made them better and greater than what they were already were.
yeah. For
And
me, oh, what was that?
no, and I was gonna say, and what it did was it worked in the favor of us, the
Yeah,
gamers.
yeah. Big time.
You know?
Look, the Xbox One generation is gonna be important to me because it got me back into gaming. Um,
Hmm.
One day I'll probably tell this story of how I lost everything about 10 years ago, where I had 360, PS3, Wii, and all that stuff, and I lost everything, all my gaming stuff. So I missed the
Yes.
last few years of the Xbox 360 generation. So that
Yeah. Yeah.
generation for me is in a way kind of incomplete because I didn't finish it or nothing. So
Well.
after struggling. When I got my Xbox One in 2015 and bought Sunset Overdrive, that was the first game I played on my Xbox One, by the way. That when I played Sunset Overdrive, I had so much fun that it sparked my love for gaming again. So that's why that generation is always going to be important to me.
Well, look, I'll share a quick story. It's very personal to me, but a lot of people don't know this. I've never really said it.
Hmm.
But the reason why the 360 for me, when it first came out, even though everybody was praising and having a great time, the first like 4, maybe even 5 years for me, the 360 generation, although I was playing games, I
Hmm.
was very hollow. It was like I was playing empty inside.
Right,
And when people ask, well, why? That's because the year that 360 came out was the year that my mother died.
right.
Okay, and when my mother passed away, she basically passed away and died in my arms.
Yeah, yeah.
I found her in a delicate situation
Hmm.
uh, in her apartment in the inside the bathroom, right?
Right.
She was turning blue. I knew that she was losing oxygen. It looked for me what I thought was that she hit her head over the sink,
Hmm.
and she fell and hurt herself. It had hurt herself that way. She wasn't responsive. She had a faint pulse, and I had to wait till the EME, ETM, EMS got there, and they were, giving her respiratory CPR and stuff. And they dragged her out into the living room.
Right.
And I had my grandmother with me because my
Mhm.
mother was watching over her because my grandmother, she had dementia, right?
Mhm.
And so my grandmother was afraid like a little child and didn't know what was going on. And
Right.
I had to deal with this all while making sure that my wife was okay with my kids because they were very young and my
Right.
wife was still, alone with them, and and making sure that nobody would, because what a lot of people did in my family, they were going into the apartment,
Mhm.
looking through my mother's stuff, touching my mother's stuff while she was laying in the hospital, dying on me,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why it was a very rough time for me. It took me a long time to heal. It took me a
Right.
very long time to learn to cope and learn to live without her because I was her only son, and she was very close to me. She was my best friend, right? And people don't know this, but that is why once I was able to go back into the actual rhythm of what gaming does for me, the happiness of it, and what I was able to experience it full fledged with with the Xbox One, right when
Right.
it released. Um, and it really bothered me that I was, because in the back of my mind I'm like, I already had a big obstacle that hurt me from really enjoying the 360 the way I wanted to, right,
Yeah. Yeah.
for a long time.
Understandable.
And here I come now into the Xbox One, where seeing that Crimson Dragons being made, Killer Instincts, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
games that were very nostalgic to me, that were from my past. And I saw all these other cool games like Rise of the Rome that really caught my interest right away. You
Right.
know, and seeing the cool things you were going to be able to do with like Dead Rising 3 with the tablet, where you can use the tablet to call for, a drive, like what you call that when the planes go by with, and they throw down missiles and stuff, airstrikes,
Right. Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So all that stuff had me very excited. And so when I saw the people doing all the stupidity and the negativity, they were basically showing the true colors of how they weren't about the games. They were about the stupidity and not the
Right.
games. That they were being biased and they were about just what they liked as a company and not really what the games were offering. It put a frustration in me. And I think that's why I got so passionate and decided, well, I'm going to do YouTube and I'm going to say what I got to say because I
Right.
don't want these people to ruin my love and my excitement that I have again for this console of the games coming out, because of stupid things that shouldn't be there, with any real gamer. Like, no
Right.
real gamer is gonna be like, I'm not playing that game because the resolution is not 1080p. What gamer that's a real gamer thinks like that? We don't do things like that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and I think that was one of my biggest drives and why I got so involved and more passionate with this generation that happened with Xbox One, which got me involved with YouTube. And I'm grateful for it because I've made a lot of good friends and friends that, although I may not speak with no more with, but at least at the time
Mhm.
that I was friends with them, I enjoyed and I felt honored to have been friends with them. Because
Right.
shit happens. Shit happens. But I'm not gonna sit here and dwell on the negativity because life goes on. Nothing's perfect. You got to take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, that's one of the things that why it was so meaningful for me, going in, because I was being able to come in with it without any weight, without any hurt,
Right.
without carrying that sorrow that I had
Yeah.
during 360. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, it may sound corny, but it's really what happened to me. So,
No. No. No.
I
That's
figured,
completely understandable.
I wanted to share that, with you guys, and that's why for me, gaming is a big escape, and I consider it a luxury. It's no
Yeah.
longer a hobby; it's a luxury because I don't have time to just sit down and enjoy it anymore. If I
Right.
get to do that, it's a blessing because I'm so busy with so many other more important things like my family, my wife, my kids,
Right.
real world shit, and even now making time with you guys that are my friends and my brothers. When we do shows like this and we hang out, we have to take the time out to do it. So
Mhm.
it's part of the schedule. It's part of the life, of my life, daily routines and stuff like that. So all that stuff for me, it's a luxury to sit here and talk with you, talk with any of you guys, hang out, play a game. So that's why I don't want to take it for granted, and no one should either, because it's very life is not it's short. Like I said, I lost a good friend that helped me during my mother's funeral. He was like a brother to me. We grew up
Right.
together, and he died younger than me because of the
Oh
same
man.
ailments that I have now because of diabetes. He lost both his legs, he lost his vision, and he was really bad, and he ended up dying. So
Right.
I that could be me. So
Yeah.
that's why I said we gotta embrace it and just take it for what it is and love it and not take it for granted. Just the superficial shit, just put it to the side and say fuck it. It's not
Right.
worth it. It really isn't. It really isn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me share that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No problem, man. Hey, man, this
Mm,
platform is for everybody. You know, if y'all guys we're like the Xbox family out here and all that. We're good friends, but I think this is a good place to wrap it up, Hebot.
oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that about your mother, and thank you for joining me and having this discussion. I know that you want
Yeah,
to
no,
get your
thank you. I know you
yeah,
wanted. I wanted to talk about this for a while, and I haven't been able to. So
yeah,
the
yeah,
whole
yeah.
time I've been talking to you, I've been driving, and people don't even
Right.
realize that. I'm picking up my son literally right now as we speak in his job.
Oh, oh, that's what's up.
And if you guys don't believe me, look, I'll show you real quick. Look, yeah, you can't see me right
Yeah, I
now.
can't see nothing. Hey, hey,
Hey,
man.
it's frozen. The camera's frozen. That's crazy.
All right. So thank you everybody for joining me. Thank you Wild Horse for the donation.
How you
Thank you
doing?
100. Fatal Siraj. Thank you for
Harold
joining
has
me.
a
We're
question
about to
for
wrap
you.
it up. Other Zinc, thank you for joining
Harold.
as well. Everybody, enjoy your Christmas. Enjoy your holidays. Enjoy your family, loved ones, and friends. Get some gaming in while you off work. And we are out.